I was reborn back to when I was 14, and my father gently asked me, "Do you want to stay in the country with your mom, or go abroad and get an extra 200 million? In my previous life," I tearfully said, "I want my mom." Then I watched helplessly as he kept a female executive and hired a nanny on the side, fathering 3 illegitimate siblings, all thrown at my mom as a joke. My mom struggled for half her life, unable to secure a decent divorce, left with nothing. Completely empty-handed, I was manipulated, laughed at, impoverished, and died in a foreign land, with even the plane ticket paid for by friends pooling their money. This time, I signed with a smile, 200 million, I'm taking it. It's not that I'm heartless, it's that I finally see clearly. In this family, no one has ever truly cared for me or my mother. I refuse to be that weak and pitiful person anymore. In this life, I will make money, I will protect my life. And I will personally take charge of the game. Biological mother, when I've won big and she no longer needs to beg others, I will personally go pick her up and bring her home. 1. I was reborn back to the year I was 14. My father had just returned from a board meeting, dressed in a sharp suit with a perfectly straight tie, sitting on the sofa in the study of the Lin family's old mansion. A contract lay beside his hand. I stood in front of him, my school uniform wrinkled, my hair a mess. Having just returned from tutoring class, looking like a middle schooler who knew nothing about household matters, "Qingwan," he called my name gently. "Your mother hasn't been emotionally stable lately. You can choose to stay in the country to accompany her, or you can go abroad and attend the school you like. After graduation, you can come back, and I can give you a portion of the company's shares in advance to try managing." He spoke sincerely and gently, like an open-minded father. "I have prepared the living expenses for studying abroad, 200 million, transferred to your personal account, with full authority to use it. In my previous life, when I stood in this position, I was terrified. 200 million. So much money. It really was a lot of money, but only now do I realize it was just a way to transfer assets." Mom sat on the living room sofa, not saying a word, her eyes red and swollen. I cried as I tore up the agreement, shredding it into pieces, and threw it in front of my dad. With reddened eyes, I shouted, "I want Mom." I really thought I had won at that time. Looking back now, I was so foolish. That year, I naively chose to stay with my mother, and what happened in the end? In less than half a year, my father still sent me abroad and placed me in the home of a female executive in the United States, claiming it was to broaden my horizons and cultivate a future successor. I became the only person in that villa with no one to rely on. And in the end, even the nanny could order me around. The female executive's pair of twins, seemingly harmless, are actually my father's illegitimate children, utterly wild. In the end, they even fought for the family fortune, and to think I once treated them as my own younger siblings, and me. In the end, no one remembered that I am the eldest daughter of the Lin family. Mom is still back in the country, all alone guarding the old house, desperately contacting schools, learning English, hiring lawyers, trying to bring me back. She thinks she's the legitimate wife, thinks she still has the right to speak up, until one day, she received a lawyer's letter stating that the property rights of the house were to be reclaimed. She didn't move out. She sat in the empty living room, unwilling to even boil water, eating cold rice bite by bite, saying, "I'm waiting for Qingwan to come back." It wasn't until I heard the sound of her opening a medicine bottle over the phone that I realized she had become so depressed she was afraid to sleep. I graduated at 19, and my first job was scrubbing floors in Melbourne's Chinatown. My second job was cleaning dog cages in a wealthy family's home. The day my mother was admitted to the hospital, I was handing out flyers in a garage. The doctor called overseas and said, "She tried to jump off the building 3 times tonight. But without your father's authorization, we can't arrange compulsory treatment." I was standing downstairs at the hospital, phone pressed to my ear, but couldn't utter a word. The last time I saw her was 5 minutes before the cremation. She could no longer hear me calling her name. It was in that moment I realized she hadn't lost to Lingua Qing. She had lost to me. The daughter she spent her life protecting was not strong enough. In this life, the agreement is placed before me once again. I did not cry. I simply picked up the pen and decisively signed my name, Lin Qingwan. My father raised an eyebrow, as if truly sizing me up for the first time. "Have you thought this through?" "I have," I said, looking at him calmly. I paused, then added, as your only child, I really should go out and gain some experience. I emphasized the word only very strongly. He froze for 2 seconds, then chuckled softly. As expected of my daughter Lin Guoqing, you certainly have ambition. I laughed too, only, my laughter was more clear-headed than his. He thought I had finally come to my senses and was willing to listen, but deep down, I knew that sending me away was just to build a relationship with his illegitimate child in advance. By getting me out of the way, he could break free from Mrs. Lin and legitimately promote his female executive. Unfortunately, my mother would never understand. She is still living in a dream, thinking he will eventually come back. She doesn't know that once I sign this agreement, both she and I will have been kicked out of the Lin family's game. That night, when I returned to my room and closed the door, the moon outside the window was cold. I didn't cry. I just turned on the computer and logged into that black card account. 200 million has been deposited. I stared at the balance for a minute, then opened the drawer and took out a notebook. On the first page, I wrote, Lin Guoqing's illegitimate children, Lin Jie, Lin Iwen, place of birth, New York, offshore trust accounts under Lin Guoqing's name, pending investigation, flow of shares from the dowry company of Mother Lin, pending investigation, goal, within 4 years, reclaim everything that belongs to me and my mother. I clicked on my mom's photo. Her smiling face from her youth is still before my eyes, wearing an old trench coat from 10 years ago, looking silly as she smiled. That trench coat was later given to the housekeeper by her, saying the family wasn't well off. Later, I saw it in the trash, the coat smeared with cake crumbs and dirty footprints. In this life, I will no longer believe in anything. It's not that I am heartless, but I have finally seen clearly. No one in this family has ever truly cared about me or my mother. From today onward, I, Lin Qingwan, will use these 2 billion to turn the Lin family's rotten situation upside down, step by step. 2. The night I signed the papers, the sky was very dark, but the lights in the living room were still on. As I went upstairs, I glanced back from the stairwell and saw my mother still sitting there. Her eyes were as red as freshly peeled shrimp shells, and she was still clutching the pencil case I used as a child. On it was printed the name I had spelled out with stickers, Lin Qingwan. She seemed to want to say something but closed her mouth instead, lowering her head as if lost in thought or trying to convince herself. I didn't say a word and turned back to my room. As soon as the door closed, the world around me fell silent, but my heartbeat was deafeningly loud. I lay on the bed, closed my eyes, and counted to 500. The moon outside the window hadn't moved, and she hadn't fallen asleep either. I heard rustling sounds coming from her room. The soft clinking of medicine bottles, the sound of a water glass falling to the floor, and a whisper of self-talk so faint it was almost inaudible. She's changed. Of course, she didn't know that what I had changed into was a lifetime of regret and tears. At 2 in the morning, I quietly went downstairs. She was still sitting on the sofa, leaning against a cushion, her eyes open like a batteryless doll. I walked over and covered her with a thin blanket. She seemed startled and lifted her head slightly. You're still awake. Her voice was hoarse, as if searching for an echo in a pile of sand. I need to write an application. I paused, telling a small lie. She nodded. I looked at her, and she looked back at me, as if trying to detect any sign of softening or hesitation on my face. But there was none. The hope in her eyes slowly faded, like the last rain of summer. She asked me in a hoarse voice, "Do you blame me?" "No," I said. She gave a bitter smile. "Your father didn't suddenly give you 200 million. He didn't want to send you abroad. He wanted to send you away." "I know." She looked up at me, her eyes frighteningly bright. "Then why did you still sign?" I didn't answer, because I couldn't explain to her. Explain how I had already experienced once how she would lose. Explain that if I didn't leave now, it would be too late for me. She clutched the copy of the agreement tightly, tears splattering onto the paper like nails pinning me in place. "I'm not trying," she murmured. "I really fought with everything I had to hold on, but he never intended for me to win." At that moment, I really wanted to hold her, to tell her that in this lifetime, I would protect her, but I didn't move. I just watched her slowly curl back onto the sofa, wiping away tears while biting her lip. Living like a child who had been driven out of the house, my heart tightened. But I couldn't let myself soften. I knew that in my past life, It all started with that one hug tonight, and I fell back into the emotional quagmire. I carried her emotions with me, and the result was her jumping off the building. Now, I even have to work to save up for a plane ticket just to take leave and go back home. This time, I can't be soft-hearted anymore. I turned around and went back to my room. At 4:30 in the morning, she finally fell asleep. I don't feel sleepy at all. I opened my email and started preparing the documents for going abroad, transfer applications, visa materials, transfer plans before account freezing, and that Plan B list that Mom never knew about, list of executives from the subsidiary companies of the Lin Group, records of property transfers under my name, contract loophole points, offshore asset management trust window, and the future successor plan training list. First place, Lin Jia, 3 years old. Will attend a prestigious preparatory school in New York in the future. I gently bit the tip of my pen and circled the word Jia 3 times. Gee, how ridiculous, just thinking about how in the future, the outside world will promote the Lin Group, a prestigious name in the industry, as having only one child, a son treasured by his father, makes me sick. In my past life, I watched him enter the group, sign contracts, manage projects, and get praised by the media as a young achiever. While the public overlooked the fact that he was an illegitimate child, this lifetime, he'll have to go through me first. At 7 a.m., my mother woke up, her eyes swollen and her face sallow. I finished washing up and was about to head out when she stood at the door to stop me. "Qingwan," she called out, her voice trembling slightly. "It's not too late to change your mind now." I stopped in my tracks and turned around. "This time, I won't," I said. "I'm going out to win a battle. And then I'll bring you back." She looked at me and didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she nodded, not a single tear in her eyes, and only said, "Then don't lose." I laughed. "Don't worry, I won't." I closed the door, and the moment I walked out of the Lin family's house, the sunlight was beautiful, the sky was blue, and the wind was a bit cold. The day I went abroad, Lin Guiqing personally drove me to the airport. In the car, my mother was also there. Sitting in the passenger seat without saying a word, she had spent a full 3 hours on her makeup. Her lipstick was too bright, her powder too heavy, but her complexion looked as if she had lost all color. She kept staring out the window, watching the road she had traveled countless times, as if sealing herself into her memories along the way. Lin Guiqing wore that slightly worn navy blue suit. His smile was appropriate, and to outsiders, he appeared to be the perfect husband and father. He held the steering wheel, talking to me about school matters while turning his head to say to my mom, "I've already arranged Qingwan's accommodation. Song, you will take care of her over there, so the child can feel much more at ease at her place." My mom didn't respond, only tightening her grip on the handbag strap until her knuckles turned white. Of course, she knew who that Song Yu was, the youngest female executive in the company, 35 years old, with dual MBA degrees. Beautiful and sweet-tongued. Most importantly, she had already given birth to a pair of twins for Lin Guiqing 3 years ago. The HR department at Lin Group even gave her a nickname, the company's crown princess. It's not that my mother didn't know, she just pretended not to know all along. Just like this time, she was still wearing her most expensive champagne gold dress, which was said to be the first valuable item father bought for her after he made his fortune. Mom sat in the passenger seat with her back ramrod straight. She should see me off like a proper lady. Even if she does, once it's over, she'll just be a woman no one remembers. At the airport, my father's driver was already waiting at the VIP lane, pulling my luggage. My mother held my hand and gently asked, "Do you have your passport? Did you pack any cold medicine? Don't forget that cashmere scarf." I nodded as I watched her eyes well up with tears. She tried to force a smile but couldn't hold it together. Her voice tightened as she said, "If it's cold over there, video call me. I'll mail you some warm clothes." My own eyes grew warm, but I held back the tears. This is not a farewell, but a parting. Father stepped forward, gently put his arm around her shoulder, and said to me with a smile, "Your mother has been very worried. She hasn't slept well these past few nights." Mom's eyes trembled. Clearly unsettled by the words, "your mother," she actually teared up, as if being loved all over again. I look at her, both angry and heartbroken. This is just who she is, even knowing she's been utterly betrayed. she still tries to scrape together a tiny bit of security from the faintest insincere affection. Perhaps it's because she spent her entire youth by his side. I stood up and walked toward the boarding gate when Mom suddenly hugged me. Chingwan, she buried her face in my shoulder, her voice trembling uncontrollably. If life gets hard over there, just come home, Mom will always be here. I patted her back and said, Mom, wait for me. Wait for you to do what? When I return, I will reclaim everything that rightfully belongs to you. I whispered softly into her ear. She froze for a moment, her eyes going blank briefly before nodding. All right, I'll be waiting for you, dear. When I glanced back, I saw my father still holding her, looking like an elderly couple deeply in love, sharing one last reluctant farewell before their daughter goes abroad. Only I know that in his office drawer, he still keeps a photo of Song-yu with their 2 children at Disneyland, smiling more genuinely than in any of our family portraits. Only I know that this did not stop him from giving all his assets decades later to the child born outside the marriage. I walked into the VIP lounge, and Song-yu was sitting on the sofa waiting for me. She was wearing a camel-colored trench coat, her makeup was immaculate, her lipstick a cool-toned rose pink, and her earrings sparkled. They were the latest Chanel design. It seems my father has given her quite a lot of money. She stood up, smiling as she reached out her hand to me. Chingwan, it's so good to see you again. I've heard so much about you from your father. I didn't shake her hand, only nodded. Thank you for your trouble. She didn't mind turning her hand to pick up her purse instead. No trouble at all. From now on, just think of me as family in the U.S. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. I smiled. She thought I didn't know who she was. In my previous life, I lived in her house for 4 years. I knew exactly which drawer was locked with the child's vaccination records, which passport was hidden in the safe, how many nannies she had gone through, and what time of night she liked to call Lin Guiqing. She thought I didn't remember anything. She didn't know that I came back to settle the score. Song-yu took me on a private flight. The seats were spacious, the flight attendants bowed as they offered water. Everything felt like a fairy tale. After sitting down, I didn't say a word. I just inserted the new SIM card, turned on location, internet, and recording permissions, and linked the financial accounts in the background with SMS verification. I knew that by leaving like this, I was completely saying goodbye to my identity as the eldest daughter of the Lin family. They could now peacefully raise their illegitimate child, but soon they will know, I am not the daughter sent away, I am the creditor returned. For, the day I landed, it was 5 in the morning, the sky in Los Angeles was still dark, and outside the cabin was a quiet, pale blue. I followed Song-yu off the plane, carrying my suitcase. She had a gentle smile and walked with purpose, like a perfectly considerate caretaker. Chingwan, you didn't get much rest last night, did you? Let's go have breakfast first. Do you prefer Chinese or Western food? She asked with such affection, as if she truly regarded me as her own daughter. I smiled faintly and said, either is fine, thank you, Aunt Song. Her eyes lit up, seemingly pleasantly surprised that I had called her Aunt Song. She didn't know that this term aunt was something I had struggled for 3 years in my past life to learn to say, and it was also the first chip I would use in this life to collect interest. The car was her own, a black Porsche Cayenne, clean and luxurious, with the trunk neatly organized, already stocked with a toiletry bag, a school uniform-style consultation list, and a life guide manual. I got into the car, closed the windows, and everything fell into silence. Song-yu chatted the whole way, asking me what color room I liked, whether I wanted a tutor, and if I was interested in learning horseback riding, tennis, or golf. Her words sounded pleasant, every sentence seeming to be for my benefit, but unfortunately, I didn't believe a single word of it. She says you're like a daughter to her in our home, but her real biological child is sleeping in the nursery of her suburban villa, with a custom English name pasted on the door and the room filled with picture books and toys worth tens of thousands. They are a pair of twins, born quietly by Song-yu in the United States during Lin Guiqing's 42nd birthday year. They are only 3 years old now, so they won't disturb me, won't appear on social media, and won't be known by Mrs. Lin. Song-yu is a smart person. She knew Lin Guiqing's divorce wasn't finalized yet, and she also knew that Mrs. Lin still held voting rights on the board, so she hid well, hiding the child, hiding her ambitions, and also hiding her wild hope of making the entire Lin group belong to her son. Right now, I am just a pawn under her cover. She knew I had good grades, a soft personality, was easy to control, and knew how to behave appropriately. Sending me abroad was just Lin Guiqing giving in to her persistent nagging. Your dad says you have particularly high emotional intelligence. Unlike some kids who only know how to study, she said, smiling as she looked me over. Let me be honest with you, he actually thinks very highly of you. I smiled and said, really, I had no idea. She paused for a moment, then continued softly, don't overthink it, your father just isn't good at expressing himself. Men, you know, their hearts are in their careers, focus on your studies now, and once he's sorted things out, he'll give you everything you deserve, after all. You're his only daughter. I nodded and said, thank you, Aunt Song, I'll listen to you more from now on. Her brows and eyes relaxed, as if she had completely let down her guard. Good child. I lowered my gaze, my nails digging into my palms. In my previous life, I was just as obedient, living in her house for 4 years like a shadow with no presence. She would celebrate my birthday every year, inviting a few children of my father's friends over for a meal, among them her own daughter. The little girl looked like Lin Guiqing and could call me sister by the age of 3, but in reality, she never truly acknowledged me as her sister. She just watched the adults laugh at how unnecessary I was, and my mother, by that time, had already been admitted to the psychiatric ward, repeatedly calling out my name. In this life, I will no longer be the obedient child, but on the surface, I will pretend to be more obedient than anyone else. Song Yu's home was decorated like a showroom. Even the tableware was limited edition. She arranged for me to stay in the guest room, with a swimming pool outside the window. The floor-to-ceiling glass was adorned with the words of "Welcome, Qingwan," making it feel like a meticulously planned grand gesture. After finishing my shower, I came out to find that she had already prepared my enrollment materials for the next day, thoughtfully printing out the school introduction and course schedule as well. Get some rest early and adjust to the time difference. I'll drive you to school tomorrow. It's always good to have someone with you on the first day, she said softly. I nodded and said, thank you, Aunt Song. She smiled contentedly. At 11 in the evening, the light in her room went out. I, however, sat at the desk in the guest room, opened the small laptop I had brought with me, and began synchronizing the memories from my past life with the current situation. I stared at the screen for a long time, until the moon rose outside the window and the night was as calm as water. In this life, I am not here to live under someone else's roof. I am here to overturn their control over everything. 5. Song Yu knocked on the door promptly at 6:30 the next day. I was already awake. Qingwan, time to get up. Breakfast is downstairs. Her voice was gentle, as if coaxing a small animal. I sat up in bed and opened the door casually. Good morning, Aunt Song. She was taken aback for a moment, probably not expecting me to get into the mood so quickly. Good girl, she said with a laugh. Go downstairs and have breakfast. I'll take you to school in a little while. On the dining table, there was milk, sandwiches, cereal, and a finely sliced fruit salad. As I sat down, a small shadow darted out from the other side of the living room. Mommy, I want a hug. The little girl threw herself into Song Yu's arms, her words so sweet they could cure anyone. I looked over and saw her wearing pink pajamas printed with Daisy Duck, her hair soft, her eyes timid, and a bit of milk still at the corner of her mouth. It was then that I noticed her eyes and brows bore some resemblance to my father. She looked up and saw me, immediately quieted down, her eyes scanning me, and asked softly, who is she? Song Yu stroked her hair and said, she's your sister, sister. The little girl tilted her head and looked at me again. Why don't you look like me? I lowered my head and smiled gently, replying in a soft tone, because my parents are different from yours. She bit the straw and nodded with a vague understanding, but only I noticed the hint of discomfort in Song Yu's eyes. At that moment, the little boy also came down the stairs, holding a very cute rabbit plush toy. He didn't say anything, just stood on the steps watching me, his eyes as wary as a cat's. I smiled at him. Good morning, Jia. He ignored me, only raising the rabbit a little higher, as if declaring his ownership. Song Yu looked a bit awkward. They're a little shy around strangers. Please don't mind. It's okay. Take your time, I said with a smile. they're still young after all. I scooped a spoonful of oatmeal and lowered my head to take a sip, hiding the turmoil in my eyes. Songyu really doesn't hold back. I don't know if she genuinely thinks I'm foolish. Both children carry Lin Guoqing's surname. Yet she claims their father works abroad. In my previous life, this was how I had breakfast, watching one of them call for mommy while the other ignored me. Over 4 years, I went from being an older sister to the Lin family's estranged daughter, then to a guest, and finally not even a guest. My school registration was inexplicably cancelled, and I had to go through their approval process just to apply to return home. Not in this lifetime, in this life. I will make them willingly hand over the future to me. Before Songyu sent me to school, she didn't forget to pull the 2 children along and say, "Come on, say goodbye to your sister." "Goodbye, sister." The little girl waved her hand crisply, while the little boy remained silent, only letting out a muffled grunt. I turned back to look at them, smiling and nodding. "Goodbye, good children." This "good children" was said for them, and also for Songyu. I know she is very intelligent and also very sensitive. She notices every look I give, every word I say, and even the way I walk, so I have to act even more harmless than she does. When she saw me off at the school gate, she carried my bag for me and started nagging again. "Lunch will be provided at school. Remember to stay hydrated. The climate in Los Angeles is dry, and call me anytime if you need anything." I looked at her gentle eyes and her proper smile. Thinking to myself that she is truly a natural-born actress, I pretended to listen very attentively. "I've remembered, Aunt Song. Thank you." She nodded with satisfaction. Before I walked into the school gate, her last words were almost whispered into my ear. "Qingwan, you need to understand that abroad, no one can hold an umbrella for you. You have to rely on yourself." I paused for a moment and smiled slightly. "Yes, I understand." I walked through the school gate with my backpack on. The sun so bright I could barely open my eyes. Ahead of me were new classmates, new teachers, a new class schedule, and a brand new situation I had to carefully weave together. But I wasn't afraid, because I wasn't here to take shelter from the rain. I was here to lay mines. At noon, when school let out, I didn't go home. Instead, I went to a nearby library to meet a former schoolmate I'd contacted earlier, an international student majoring in accounting who had worked on the Lin family's North American accounts. "You're saying the Lin's America acquisition involved fraudulent accounts?" I asked quietly. He nodded, his eyes darting away. "I don't want to get too involved. I was just asked to modify 2 invoices. It was indeed a money laundering channel. I dare not say who." I took out a business card bearing the logo of the headhunting firm he'd be contacting within the next 3 years. "I know who will be checking your future resume, and I know which company you interned at after graduation. Whether you can get ashore depends on how much you say today." His face turned pale. "Who exactly are you?" "I am Lin Guoqing's daughter from the Lin Group," I said slowly, "the legitimate, biological daughter of Mrs. Lin." He didn't hesitate any longer and sent the 2 hidden sets of fake accounts to my email. As I received the files, I couldn't help but smile. In this life, I am no longer obedient, nor am I slow anymore. I will use every rule they taught me to nail them down one by one on the table. On the day I return, I will make Lin Guoqing, Songyu, and her little prince and princess know I am not the pawn they have hidden in the United States. I am the hunter they quietly raised. 6. Time flew by in the United States, and I was completely immersed in my busy studies, in addition to school courses. I also learned a lot by leveraging my status as the eldest daughter. I have to admit, Songyu took very good care of me, at least on the surface. I stayed in a guest room she meticulously maintained, with curtains in my favorite creamy white. The desk was always stocked with freshly replaced stationery and a daily planner. The refrigerator in the kitchen was fully stocked, and she would be waiting at the school gate every day after school, just like a biological mother. She was also very cooperative with the things I needed to learn. She had to be, after all, because according to the path of my previous life, I, the capable but naive girl, ended up paving the way for her son. She never gave me a hard time. In fact, she often praised me in a tone of understanding, calling me independent, smart, and well-mannered. She would even introduce me to others as the future successor of the company. Sometimes I have to admire her acting skills. Even more natural than Song Yu were the pair of twins. They had completely accepted me as their one and only sister. Every night, the little girl insists that I tell her a bedtime story. The little boy always demands that I arrange his toys before bed and loves having me carry him to wash his hands. They cling to me like vines wrapping around a tree, cautious yet with all their might. But I know it's not out of love. It's because they are still young. They don't know who I am. Nor do they realize that we are not a family of three. I don't know, but as they slowly grow up, Song Yu will personally pull me down from this position as an older sister, step by step, until I'm trampled into the dust. But for now, I'm in no hurry. The more they love me now, the more it will hurt in the future. I accompany them in drawing, playing the piano, reading English picture books, and playing role-playing games. In their eyes, I am the best, gentlest, and most considerate older sister. They call me Qingwan sister, and in kindergarten, they even argue with other kids, saying, "My sister is the prettiest, and she'll protect me." I always smile and pat their heads, saying, "Of course, your sister will protect you for a lifetime." I wasn't lying. I will protect them, until they learn how their mother protected mine. In the evening, I was curled up on the sofa doing homework, and a business interview program happened to be playing on the TV. A familiar logo flashed by, and the host said in an enthusiastic tone, "Today, we have invited Mr. Lin Guiqing, chairman of the Lin Group. Welcome." The camera zoomed in. My father was still wearing that well-tailored suit, with a gentle smile, sitting seriously in front of the camera. I stared at that face for a few seconds. It felt so familiar that it reminded me of when I was a child, watching the big windmill in the living room. And he patted my head, saying, "Qingwan, you should aim for Tsinghua University in the future." The host smiled and asked, "Mr. Lin, I heard that you have a happy family and a daughter, Miss Lin Qingwan, who is currently studying in the United States." Father nodded, his smile unchanged. "Yes, I only have one child," the host joked. "Oh my, with so many businesses and such a large family fortune, it's no small pressure for Miss Lin to take over all by herself." My father paused briefly, his smile faltering for a moment. "Well, yes. But I believe she can do it." I sat up straight, staring at the familiar face on the screen, a slight smile curling at the corners of my mouth. This was Lin Guiqing, facing the camera. He was as flawless and impeccable as ever, but I caught a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, a hint of guilt, that instinctive flinch. Only I can understand. It's not that he couldn't bear to let me take over alone. He wished he could tell the whole world. In fact, I still have a son. The true heir is not her. I turned off the TV and sat in the darkness for a long time without moving, until my phone screen lit up with a notification from back home. The live broadcast of the board's quarterly meeting was about to begin, with the Lin Group planning to launch the next round of overseas acquisitions. I clicked into the live stream and entered the hidden access password. On the screen were contracts, betting clauses, fund flow reports, and page after page of statements from Lin Group executives. I glanced at the list of executives and curled my lips again. Song Yu's name was prominently listed. Her title had been upgraded to Global Strategy Execution Consultant, and she was a core member of the Overseas Mergers and Acquisitions team. Everything was just like the previous life. She methodically climbed her way up, placating me, playing the benefactor, all so seamlessly executed. And on my end, I methodically pressed the sync button, storing all meeting records in my private cloud drive, including the internal employee performance evaluation form she submitted last time, signed by her own hand, suggesting that the voting rights from my mother's former nominal shareholding in the group be classified as a historical issue pending resolution. I laughed. She was acting. I'm acting too. It's just that our scripts are different. She thought I was a horse that could be led away once the reins were on, but I was just waiting for her to run faster and faster, so I could stomp her down in one move. At 2 a.m, I sat at my desk, the light shining on my notebook. As names, documents, and timelines appeared one after another on the screen, I wrote down a line: Lin Qingwan, currently 16 years old, the sole legal heir of the Lin family, assets in the process of being restored. 4 years. Not too long, not too short. The sunset in Los Angeles is still golden, but I know it's time for me to leave, on the day of my college graduation ceremony. I didn't invite my father, I only invited my mother. She wore a navy blue velvet gown, and her complexion looked much better than it had 4 years ago. The fine lines at the corners of her eyes had faded, and the furrow between her brows was gone. Standing at the edge of the crowd, she watched me take off my graduation cap, smiling while secretly wiping away tears. I walked over to her, and she took my hand, her voice trembling slightly. "Qingwan, look at you, you've lost weight again." I smiled and shook her hand in return. "Mom, I'm fine. I've already started getting involved with company matters, and I'll be even busier when I get back. Don't worry, ma'am, the young lady is truly remarkable. I've admired her self-discipline all these years." The driver picking us up was Song Yu, who sat in the passenger seat with a proper smile. Her tone was cheerful, like a harmless assistant. Mother also nodded. "You've worked hard all these years. Please don't say that. Qingwan is like a daughter to me." As I said this, I saw a flicker of emotion in my mother's eyes, and her hand instinctively tightened its grip. I knew that she actually understood everything. She was just still waiting for a turn of the head that would never come. But I didn't give her a chance to speak, because I knew that once I started reminiscing, she would be trapped by the past again. The night before I went home, the two children quietly knocked on my door. "Sis," it was Lin Iwan, small and delicate, with soft, flat hair, wearing pink bunny pajamas, her eyes rimmed red. Behind her was Lin Jie, wearing a blue Superman t-shirt, holding his favorite Transformers toy. "What brings you here?" I feigned a bit of surprise and led them inside. "Are you going back to China?" The little girl rushed over and hugged me, her voice sticky and pleading. "You promised you'd watch me grow up." "You're lying," Lin Jie pouted, putting on a grown-up expression. "Dad didn't say you were leaving. I'm going for work." "It's not like I'm never coming back," I said, patting their heads. "Then can you video call us, say goodnight to us every day?" Iwan asked, her big grape-like eyes welling up with tears that began to fall uncontrollably. I gently hugged her. "Of course, I miss you both every day. They really are still so young, clean, clingy, adorable." They almost made me forget for a moment that they were Song Yu's backup plan. The next day when seeing her off at the airport, Song Yu gave me a big hug in the parking lot. "Qingwan, once your father's work arrangements are settled, you should seriously consider joining the group. After all, you are his only daughter." I nodded obediently. "I'll wait for his arrangements." "With you leaving, the two little ones are quite heartbroken," she sighed. "They really can't bear to part with you. Their sister, Aunt Song." I interrupted her, my gaze sincere. "They need me, and our home country needs me too." She was taken aback for a moment, then smiled. "All right, then it's up to your own choice." I picked up my luggage and stepped out of the airport just as the sky was beginning to lighten. I knew that this step was the first one toward a complete return. I am not the obedient daughter of the Lin family, nor am I someone living under another's roof. I am Lin Qingwan, my mother's daughter, the heir returning to the Lin family to reclaim everything. The first thing I did after returning to the country was to pull up the organizational structure of the Lin Group and analyze the logic behind the executive rotation system. The second thing was to send out an anonymous resume through external headhunting channels. Using an alias to apply for a position at the most promising subsidiary under the Lin Group, no one knew who I was, only that I had a strong educational background, solid experience, and spoke with just the right amount of tact. I was seen as a talent. I didn't want a position arranged by my father. I wanted to start from a place beyond his control, digging deeper bit by bit. Because I know that the true successor of the Lin family will never be someone who sits and waits for fate to bestow its favors. As the plane streaked across the sky, my mind was filled with my mother's words of advice that night and the dependence I saw in the eyes of Song Yu's children, and also that resolute statement from Lin Guoqing in the media interview. "Yes, I have only this one daughter." I smiled softly. "Yes, just this one. So this time, I want him to regret not cherishing this one and only. In the future, I will use the power of the media to elevate this one and only to great heights." 8. The year I returned to my home country, I had just turned 18. Lin Guoqing personally came to the airport to pick me up, just as he had when he sent me abroad, dressed in a suit and tie, beaming with a smile. Behind him stood several high-ranking executives from the group. Even through my sunglasses, I could tell who were his newly promoted confidants and who were the seasoned veterans intending to put me in my place. Qingwan, you're finally back, he said. Yes, I smiled. Dad, he patted my shoulder with satisfaction. Don't worry, the company has already arranged a position for you. You'll start with a rotation in the overseas investment department, work steadily, and there will be a place for you. I nodded. Thank you, President Lin. His movements paused, and the smile on his face cracked for a moment. I knew he had heard. I had long drawn a conclusion for his father, but he still needed me to be the family daughter card for the group's external image, needed me to reassure those nostalgic shareholders on the board. And just like that, I came back. In the first year, I did miscellaneous tasks in the investment department, running market errands, writing reports, working late nights, without putting on any airs. Everyone thought I was humble, capable, and well-mannered, and some began to genuinely like me. In the second year, I was transferred to the president's office, becoming a project coordinator. I accompanied Lin Guoqing to various events, took notes during meetings, and conducted post-meeting reviews, quietly familiarizing myself with the entire group's power structure. He began to trust me. In the third year, my mother finally moved out of the Lin family completely and settled into the newly purchased single-family villa. She became quiet, clean, and thorough, as if she had finally let go of everything, but only I knew that every time she saw photos of Lin Guoqing and Song Yu appearing together in the news, she would purse her lips, her fingertips trembling. I'm fine, she said. Don't feel sorry for me. I nodded. I don't feel sorry for you. I'm remembering it. That winter, Song Yu returned to China with a pair of twins, saying the children needed to receive a Chinese language education. The children were already 11 years old and enrolled in the city's top international elementary school. I prepared a big gift package in advance and brought it to their home to visit them. Auntie, the two children rushed into my arms, their eyes and eyebrows looking exactly like Lin Guoqing's. Are you being good? Do you miss your sister? I smiled and crouched down, handing them the carefully selected toys. We miss you, sister. You smell so nice. I told my teacher that I want to be a big sister like you when I grow up. Song Yu laughed beside us. See how much they adore you. I also laughed. They're all clever children. I reached out to stroke their hair, and my eyes gradually turned icy cold. They are still young and don't yet understand the weight they carry, but I do. That day, I went home and called my mother. Mom, I'll get you a new bodyguard. The winds have been too strong lately. Are you afraid something might happen to me, or are you afraid of what I might do? Mother asked softly. Neither. I paused. I'm afraid you'll steal my spotlight. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, then a light laugh. Qingwan, you've grown up. In the 6 years since I returned to China, I have progressed from job rotations to executive assistant, then to deputy head of a project, and finally to board secretary, seizing every breakthrough opportunity step by step. Before the chairman's term change, I became the youngest member of the core secretarial team, participating in all document circulation and high-level meetings. I knew Lin Guoqing was on guard, but he was too busy expanding the group to a market value of hundreds of billions, busy paving the way for Song Yu and her son, so busy that he forgot when I had already infiltrated right under his nose. I didn't show any reaction. But everyone within the internal factions of the group knew that Lin Guoqing only had one child. Meanwhile, major domestic and international media outlets have given Lin, the head of the Lin Group, excellent reviews, describing him as a model private entrepreneur, frugal and with only one daughter. Due to this reputation, even if he wanted to publicly acknowledge his biological son, he didn't dare to step forward, and all of this was a trap I set for him. 9. On my 28th birthday, Lin Guoqing unexpectedly fell ill. The retribution came faster than I had imagined. Sudden angina pectoris struck 10 minutes before the intense debate at the board meeting, and he was directly rushed to the ICU. The media claimed he was overworked, but the board began reshuffling the moment he entered the operating room. When I arrived at the hospital with the document box, Song Yu was already waiting at the door of the ward, looking utterly exhausted. Your father trusted you the most, she said with red-rimmed eyes. No one on the board can keep things under control right now. The group must not fall into chaos. I smiled and handed over the document case. Aunt Song, I've brought a plan to stabilize the group. She hesitated for a moment, then opened the file and flipped through the pages one by one. The first page was a proposal for an emergency authorization from the board of directors, already signed by 7 key directors, only her signature was missing. Page 2 presents the proposal for restructuring the group's current shareholding structure. Page 3 is a copy of an anonymous tip-off letter, reporting that the chairman, while still married, used a total of 260 million yuan in group funds for a certain female executive and her children, suspected of major financial misconduct and improper transfer of benefits. Song Yu's fingers trembled. "Qingwan, you." She suddenly looked up. "What are you going to do?" My smile remained unchanged. "You said it yourself, I am the only daughter of the Lin family. Now, I'm here to collect what my father left for me." "You're betraying your father." "It's not that I'm betraying him. He sold me out long ago." My voice was low, yet sharp as a blade. "I'm merely taking hold of the knife he handed me." Song Yu stood up, her face pale. "You won't succeed. Your father will stop you once he wakes up. He has already signed the will memorandum." I pulled a document from my bag, handwritten, including arrangements for your child's upbringing, and the transitional authorization for the chairman position. She looked as if struck by lightning. "How did you get this?" "Because I was the one who discussed it with him before his surgery." "You're lying, Aunt Song." I smiled faintly. "You've forgotten, I've been by his side for 10 years, while you only accompanied him for 3 years overseas." Song Yu froze completely. She finally realized that she thought I was waiting for the group to acknowledge me, waiting for Lin Guoqing to give in, but in fact, I was waiting for her child to grow old enough to understand the moment of her mother's collapse. The board meeting proceeded as usual. I stood in the center of the conference room, with my legal team and audit representatives behind me. When I announced my appointment as acting interim chairman, Song Yu's seat was empty. Lin Guoqing was still in the ICU, and the twins had been taken away and placed into a trust fund far removed from the group's operations. Some questioned, "She's just a daughter, the chairman isn't even dead yet," and I simply said one thing: "I am Lin Qingwan, Lin Guoqing's only legal heir." Over the past 10 years, I have been involved in every project document, every round of financial report approvals, and every bidding session. Today is merely about following legal procedures. No one spoke again. Lin Guoqing finally woke up. He had lost weight, and looking at me standing by the hospital bed, his voice was hoarse. "You, since when did you start?" "Since the day you first said 200 million to go abroad." He froze, as if recalling the moment I signed and left that spring. "You don't hate me?" he asked. "I do, but there's no time for hatred now," I said. "You raised the wolves, and you should admit you were the one who left the door open." He closed his eyes, his fingers trembling as he reached for the bell. But I had already turned to leave. At that moment, I finally heard him call out softly, "Qingwan." I didn't look back. That winter, when the group released its New Year's greetings, the official homepage of the Lin Group updated the chairman's portrait for the first time. A calm, young woman with clear yet sharp eyes. Her name is Lin Qingwan. In 10 years, she transformed from a pitiful girl sent abroad into the true helm of the Lin Group. She didn't win back her father's love, but she preserved her mother's dignity and won the entire world for herself. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window on the top floor of the group's building, receiving a transoceanic video call from the United States. On the screen were the 12-year-old twins, a boy and a girl. "Sis, Mom has been crying a lot these days. She said you don't want us anymore." I was slightly taken aback, then softly replied, "Don't worry. Sis will always be here."